Okay, so today I'm going to talk about my living conditions at my dad's and how I seen my dad growing up and the side of the story from my dad's side. Because I told my mom's side, now I'm going to tell my dad's side. So, to me, as a little girl, my dad seemed very magical and very cool. I don't really know why, but yeah, he did. He would show up in like a big truck and he would give me presents and he was very cool and yeah, and then as I got older, he would come and pick me up out of nowhere and it's like he would pick me up in a car and he would be drinking and driving the whole entire time and like I would be sitting and just like a floorboard of empty beer cans that he's thrown down because he finished drinking them and we're just going. And I remember I would be praying the whole entire time, praying for angels to watch over us as we drive, but he never had any problems or complications. He did really well. And I remember he would take me places to like, you know, Chuck E. Cheese's, Discoverland, and we would go to all kinds of stuff like concerts and movies, and I don't know, he was just really cool. I also remember we would go and try to pick up my big sister, and her mom would come out there with like a gun and would not let her go. So there was a couple times that she was allowed to go, and there was a couple times where she was allowed to go and my dad was with my stepmom. And whenever my dad was with my stepmom, they fought all the time, and she talked mad shit about him. You know, she's just always speaking mean towards him, and it didn't matter where my dad lived, whether it was with her. I mean, she was a hard-working woman. She really didn't have time to clean the house, you know. She was working hard to pay the bills and take care of her kids, you know. Everywhere that my dad lived was just the most horrendous living conditions that you can imagine. Like, you know, I watched the show Hoarders and I'm like, oh, that's part of my childhood, you know? To live in houses like that, to see houses like that. My dad had friends with people with houses like that we would stay at their house sometimes when he didn't have nowhere to stay. You know, he just seemed like a magical floater guy. I don't know. To me it was pretty cool, but there were times that he was really, really depressed, and I didn't realize how much I helped him just by being there. But yeah, as I learned at my mom's about cleanliness, here I learned about the joys of dirty. That dirty is also fun, and that, you know, dirty is not all bad. I don't look at it like, oh, like, I do understand trash, you know, just trashed and bagged up. It's a sad condition for those things. It really is. It's a sad condition. So I don't really think about it as much like that anymore. But yeah, growing up, I lived in these dirty, dirty atmospheres. Really, really dirty. And I saw how much you can still be healthy in dirty atmospheres, you know? And, yeah, I guess I got comfortable in the dirty atmospheres because honestly, that's where I feel like I can breathe, I can let go, I can relax, it's fine, let it all be dirty, let it all be a mess. And yeah, at my dad's, I would, once I became a teenager, I would always, he never really smoked cigarettes, but he would smoke joints and he would leave the roaches in an ashtray of roaches. And oh my gosh, I would just like, that was my ashtray. And oh my, just sit back, smoke roach joints all day. But you know, whenever my stepmom wasn't there at my dad's, we lived in this one old rinky-dink trailer, and I would clean up and then just sit back and smoke joints and watch TV all day, watch movies. He always had satellite TV because he was a satellite TV salesman for a while, and he learned how to hack the system. My dad he was poor. He was very, very poor. And so was my stepmom, very poor. And I watched how they both were very innovative, and they found ways to enjoy life even though they're poor. And I love that about them, and I love that they taught me that. At my dad's, there was, you know, it was a party atmosphere. There was always loud music playing and a bunch of dirty old men around drinking, and they say dirty stuff, and it's just like, whatever. They never really did try to mess with me or anything, but well, there was this one time whenever I was learning how to drive. I had gotten my permit and I kept begging my dad to allow me to drive, and some guy started showing up in his yard, and he's like, she really wants to drive, and one dude's like, I'll let her drive, and he's like, all right, go for it. And so I jumped in his truck and I got to drive around the town, around the neighborhood, and then he put his hand like right here, and I was just like, ew, no. And I went straight back to my dad's, and I got mad, and I went and told my dad, and I mean, all the guys jumped him. So that's what happened with that time. So, I mean, he got what he deserved. He came around and he apologized to me, and he was allowed to come around and party, and he was partying for many years after that. So, I mean, there is a way to make it right and to apologize and to not do that anymore. But for the most part, most guys did not touch me. They didn't grab me, and they would just say dirty old man comments, and I don't know. I enjoyed the atmosphere. I always seen elders as, no matter who you are, if you're an elder, you have some wisdom for me, and I want to hear it. What is it? And older people, if younger people will listen to the wisdom that they think that they have, even if it's not wisdom, listen. I mean, sometimes there's something there, sometimes there's not anything there, but when there is something, I mean, that's nice. But, and if there's not anything, what did you do? You made an elder feel better about their life. Is that so bad? I don't think so. Because I don't know, I've always had this understanding of I'm going to get older too one day, and I don't know, I enjoyed my time with them. And then there was this one guy that I liked the most. I mean, not like that, but, and before I even begin to explain this guy, I do want to put a disclaimer in. Again, I'm not telling my truth in this story. This is a false story based off my true reality. So it's not a real story, and this guy is no longer living. So I hope that that is clear throughout this whole thing, but he is no longer living. But during this time, he was my favorite guy, and it turns out that he was my dad's marijuana dealer. He dealt marijuana, and he would come over every time that, my dad needed to buy, and he would hang out, and because, I mean, at my dad's house, it was a party house, and it was like, you can hang out and probably sell a bunch of sacks, and hang out at the party, too. And he would always throw away his stems and seed, and me and my sister would gasp. We'd be like, oh. And then he was like, y'all don't like that I'm throwing those away, do you? And we were like, no. And he is like, if you want, I'll just start saving them for you. And then every time he would come over to my dad's, he would give my sister and I bags of seeds and stems. And yes, we would have to go through and just get the little crumbs out. But for us at that age, it was just like, for me, I'm a major pothead. I'm going to be open with that in my fake story. I'm a major pothead. So at that time in my life, oh my gosh, it was everything, And with all the traumas I've been through and everything, it's just like marijuana, like for me, my brain just is on nonstop attack. And marijuana tells it to calm down and allows me to get done what I need to get done, For me, it's a lifesaver, and I don't know, I really am connected to the plant. I do think that one day I might possibly quit, but I don't know. It is what it is. And this guy, Robert, he was just awesome. He was my favorite guy. He was the one that if he came over, I would run and give him a hug and jump in his lap and hang out with him. And he noticed that we didn't know how to roll one time at a party, and because he was asking us to roll some joints. We were like, oh, and he's like, y'all don't know how to roll? We're like, no. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna come over here one day while your dad's at work. And he did. And he put the most weed we had ever seen in our life on the table. And we were like, oh. And he's like, yeah, we're going to sit here and roll and smoke until you know how to roll. And we did. That was so crazy, and it was so much fun. And if you look down on me for that, oh well, that's my life. This is my life, my story. And in my story, I'm a pothead. And as a pothead, that was one of the best days of my pothead life. My little pothead life. I don't think that marijuana, it decreases my intelligence or decreases my motivation. That's another thing the objection that they had was, well, it decreases your motivation. And I'm like, no, I can't get things done unless I have my brain not attacking me. You know, I have to calm down the attacks from my brain, because all these things that my mother and my stepmother said to me throughout my life, I fully internalized. And they told me that I was stupid more times than ever. And my stepmother said that I told you that so that you could grow and be stronger and want to do it despite me. It didn't work that way for me. I internalized it, and what happened to me was I had 10 years, a whole decade of my life taken from me because of that internalization. And it wasn't until being in mental illness, being put in mental hospital after mental hospital, that I was able to undig all that and be able to be something and be someone. I could have been something and someone to begin with if I wouldn't have had all that deep internalization of how dumb and stupid and useless I am. I knew that I was those things, so what's the point of trying? There's no do it despite you. I'm completely useless. I had to unpack all that in order to get to the place that she was trying to get me to. And that's okay. She didn't understand that in her time. And I am grateful for her. And later on in my life, I'm able to reconcile with her and talk to her. And she asks for forgiveness, and I give it. And I ask for forgiveness because I was not the perfect child in any way. I didn't do good things. But the thing about it is, my stepmom and my dad were on again, off again. And I didn't care who my dad was with. That was his love. That was his life. And there was a time when he was about to get back with my stepmom, and he asked me, and I said, I don't care if it makes you happy, you know? And I didn't know that she was really hard on drugs at this time in her life, in my life, in our life, and in our fictional life. And she, oh my gosh, she thought that I didn't want her there. And I didn't care. I didn't care. Whatever. You know, I just want to sit back and smoke my weed and relax, you know, honestly. And at that time, I really cared about my schoolwork, getting my schoolwork done. I was in all AP classes, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I was also in design art, which is, I'm so grateful that I took that art class. Like, you know, it's the type of art where optical illusions, so I can do optical illusions, draw them, and I'm very good at it, and I'm so happy for that time of my life. But yeah, my stepmom didn't think that I was for her and my dad at all, and she would destroy stuff and tell my dad that I was doing it. She would throw dishes out the window and tell my dad that I was doing it. One of my favorite things that my dad had at his house was a boombox. I'd listen to it and dance every day, and she busted it in front of me and then told me that she's going to tell my dad that I did it. And then one day she was just driving down the road, and her tire busted, and she tells me that I did it. And you know, all these things, every time she tells my dad that I did it, I got a spanking. I got in trouble, and it was intense, you know, and just living in that dirty environment, and I don't know, it is what it is. It's how it was. Yeah, so that was the atmosphere that I lived in and I experienced at my dad's, and I'm so grateful for it because it taught me how resilient I am, how strong I am, how much I can endure, and how much I can overcome. And so, yeah, thank you all for listening, and as always, be blessed with love. That's all she got.